Hi y'all, my name is Mackenzie Walker and I'll be here to answer a few questions of yours today about life as an Arnold School student. I was actually in your shoes about 3 or 4 years ago when I was in Kara's U101 class as well. And also last year I was her peer leader, so I'm really excited to answer some questions for you. I've since graduated. Last May I graduated with my exercise science degree in the Arnold School of Public Health, and also I'm still here at USC. I'm a grad assistant working for some research, and I'm also taking classes within the Master's in Adapted Physical Education program, so I really enjoyed that. But on to some of your questions. So the first one I see here is, were you able to get involved with research at U of SC? If so, in what research did you participate in? The answer is yes, I was able to get involved here at USC in research. Coming into college, I knew I wanted to do research because I knew it would look good on grad school applications, and also I enjoyed taking an AP research class in high school. So when I came in, I actually went to a Getting Started in Research workshop offered by the Office of Undergraduate Research, and that helped me look through a database and kind of seeing my interest and what interests and the research interests of faculty, and where we aligned and where we matched up. So I came across this program that looked at the faith, activity, and nutrition, and it was all about going into churches and helping them implement a healthy eating and physical activity plan. So that was with Dr. Wilcox. So basically what I did is, using all the guidance I got in the workshop, I just kind of reached out to her. We set up a meeting, and we talked through my interest and some opportunities that I had for their program, and she offered me the opportunity to come in and volunteer about 5 hours a week, and that was the spring semester of my freshman year. And then after that, I actually applied for a grant through the Honors College called the Exploration Grant. So with that grant, I was actually able to salary myself and get paid $10 an hour, which is super nice, doing the same work. But I did that the spring semester of my sophomore year, but the fall semester of my sophomore year, I actually did an independent study. So I got an exercise science cognate out of the way doing that. So that was nice. And then I guess we're at the end of my sophomore year now. So over the summer, I was kind of working in that office in the Prevention Research Center, and I overheard a PhD student saying he needs some people to go out and do data collecting. And so I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, well, we pay $12 an hour. I was like, okay, I'm in. And so we headed out to Florence, South Carolina, and it was only for about a month, but we headed out to Florence, South Carolina, and we took height, weight, body composition analysis on a bunch of middle schoolers, basically to see if middle schoolers who were going to year-round school instead of school which had a break in the summer, if that impacted their body composition. So I did that, and then I met up with someone in the physical education department. I'll get to that a little bit later when I'm talking about Spurs Club. But I met up with her, and she offered me an opportunity to be a research assistant for her grant, which was looking at basically this program called Skipping with Pals. And they basically took over PTA at a school, and then they made it about physical activity. And they were doing it with the parents, and they would have the kids come in. So I got to do that. And then I applied for a Magellan grant, and that's not through honors, that's just through the Office of Undergraduate Research. So really anyone can apply for that. And so I applied for the Magellan grant, and I looked at the perceptions of physical activity barriers and facilitators for parents participating in that Skipping with Pals program. So that's a bit of my research experience. Really, it's just, getting your foot in the door with one person, and then it kind of leads to another thing. So, always networking, and, professors will tell you about their research if you ask, and oftentimes they have opportunities, so that's really great. And especially if the opportunity is paid, that's perfect to get paid for your time. So the next thing I see is, what's your favorite part of being a public health BS/exercise science BS/public health BA major? So for me, I was an exercise science BS major. I have to say my favorite part of it was, being in the Arnold School of Public Health, because I really enjoyed taking those, having that public health background and taking that intro-level public health course. It was definitely one of my favorites. But my favorite part about specifically being an exercise science BS major is I was able to take independent studies. So like I said before, I was doing my research as an independent study. I think we called it like community-based research interventions or something like that. So I did an independent study there, and I did another independent study with my advisor, Dr. Corwin, and she helped me create one that was facilitating adaptive sports and recreations for persons with disabilities, which I really enjoyed. So I just really kind of like the flexibility and that I was able to get that practical experience, and to go off of practical experience, I also had the opportunity to do the exercise science practicum, part of it before COVID. So that was really great to get to go out and do pediatric occupational therapy. And also just the professors and the faculty. Like, I love so many people in the public health department. It's really great. I love the Arnold School of Public Health, and it's great to have that support system. And then, were there any interesting internships you participated in? Yes. So I got involved with adaptive sports and recreation pretty early on. I think it was the summer before my freshman year. And basically I got involved with this lady named Alice Krause, and she's an occupational therapist who started an adaptive sports and recreation program. So when I say adaptive sports and recreation, I'm talking about sports and recreation opportunities that are specifically designed for individuals with disabilities to participate. So this could be something like wheelchair basketball, hand cycling, adaptive yoga, where there's volunteers to come help support the yoga positions, bowling, game day, anything like that. So I volunteered the summer before my freshman year, and then I came back the summer after my freshman year and did an exercise science and community health internship. So this was in Jacksonville, Florida. So basically my internship was going out and facilitating, personally meaningful occupations through sport in these different activities. So I was assigned to wheelchair basketball and quad rugby and adaptive yoga and cycling and bowling and game day and some of the special events. So we had rock climbing and kayaking and everything like that. I really enjoyed that. I also got to sit on some staff meetings, and at those staff meetings, kind of got to go over everything, and that was really nice. And I had a little bit of time in the office where I was creating a resource guide that was basically going over all 26 conditions that the adaptive sports and recreation program sees, and looking at different things like an overview of the condition and safety considerations and everything like that. So that way new volunteers and new staff could use it. So that was a really cool opportunity. Another interesting internship I participated in was through my practicum. So I was an occupational therapy intern with, they used to be Prisma Health. No. They used to be Palmetto Health, and now they are the Prisma Health USC Orthopedic Center. So I shadowed an occupational therapist doing peds occupational therapy. So that was really fun, You're looking at personally meaningful occupation for kids, and that's stuff like, doing puzzles on a scooter board and, making drawings and doing Play-Doh sculptures and swinging on the swing. But really all of these things have to do with their rehabilitation. You're kind of disguising their rehabilitation as play, which I really enjoyed. And that was in Lexington, so only a 20-minute drive from campus. So what are the best clubs here at U of C related to exercise science and public health? So I have to be upfront with you. I'm very biased in this question. I actually started an adaptive sports and recreation club here called SPURS. SPURS Club, SPURS stands for Students Participating in Unified Recreation and Sports. So like I was talking earlier about adaptive sports, we're doing sports specifically designed for individuals with disabilities. So some of the sports that we do, well, I should also tell you our mission. So our mission is basically to increase involvement in and awareness of adaptive sports at the University of South Carolina. So first of all, this is really related to exercise science because, you're exercising, you're able to see the benefits of exercise, and specifically to a population with disabilities. And then also public health, because the whole field of adaptive sports is essentially rooted in public health because, we're looking at a primary prevention strategy, and y'all may not have taken public health yet, so we're not related to that, but essentially a primary prevention strategy is something we're going to do to prevent a health condition from happening. So for instance, participation in sports in the way in which it increases physical activity and health and everything like that can prevent chronic conditions such as obesity and diabetes and such like that. So primary prevention strategy. and it's super fun. So some different things we've done is we've done goal ball, which is basically a form of, not really a form of soccer for people with visual impairments, but that's the most I can relate it to. Basically, everyone's blindfolded and you have a ball that rings. So then you take the ball and you roll it, and it has bells that ring, and then basically you dive in the direction of the ball to keep it from going in your net, if that makes sense. We've also done seated volleyball, which was really fun. So volleyball sitting down, lowered net, your butt scooting around. That's great. And some other things we've done, we took a trip actually to Jacksonville, and then we stayed with my mom because it's nice and cheap and free meals. And then we volunteered for the quad rugby tournament, which is really cool. That's wheelchair rugby designed for people with quadriplegia. And honestly, I think that is the best club at USC related to exercise science and public health. I do think there's an exercise science club, and there's a public health club. But, I really like Spurs Club because we're able to do fun things, and, we never really have meetings. We just kind of have events. So we go and we do an event. And I miss, we play beep kickball too. So that's basically a form of kickball where, like, everyone's blindfolded, the ball beeps, you kick the ball out into the outfield, people are blindfolded and they have to try and find the ball and raise it above their head, and, you can make it to the base or not make it to the base before that happens, and so you're, like, out or not. And the base beeps too. And it's really, really, really fun to watch people play blindfolded. So yeah, as far as clubs go, I kind of went off on a tangent there. Clubs or organizations that have been the most interesting or rewarding. Again, I have to say Spurs Club has been the most interesting and rewarding for me. I really like adaptive sports. I love what it can do for people with disabilities and the opportunities it can provide them. Additionally, I think they're super fun to play. I think they're super fun to watch, and I think it is very great, even for individuals without disabilities, it's very great to experience this. So, like, y'all are going into the healthcare professions probably, and, having this experience, maybe Sports Club didn't serve an individual with a disability, but kind of vicariously did, because, like, I may have taught, like, so-and-so about adaptive sports, and then they remember that when they're a physical therapist or an occupational therapist, and they tell their client, hey, like, why don't you join the local adaptive sports program? So I really, really enjoyed Spurs Club. Another organization that I was involved with the entirety of my career at the University of South Carolina was Pillars for Carolina. Basically an extended orientation program. So it was kind of like, like a summer camp for incoming freshmen. Y'all probably don't know a lot about it because they had to cancel this year because of restrictions due to COVID. But basically, it's a mentorship program, and the incoming students come in, they stay for like 5 days and 4 nights, and they're all in a family group. So the family group will have 2 mentors, and a family group is like a group of like anywhere between like 10 and 16 people, and the mentors are like upperclassmen students, and we just kind of hang out and have fun and do some reflective activities and talk about college life. We do things where we take people around campus, but it's called the Amazing Race. So, like, everyone's competing in their little family groups, and it's the first time they're out on their own without their XM, and they're competing to see who can get through first. But you have hints that lead you to certain buildings on campus, and then you have to do a challenge at each one, and those are always really entertaining to watch. I remember, like, the group message with us XMs, so those are, I don't know if I said that before, but the XMs are the mentors to the family groups. We'll be in the group message and like, oh my god, we're all named after buildings in the Horseshoe, by the way. So they'll be like, oh my gosh, Dessa Shore is all the way by the State House. They've wandered all the way off campus. We make fun of them, and it's great. So I was a Pillars participant, and then my next year I was an XM, and then the year after that I was director of operations. So that was super fun because I had to coordinate everything. And then you were asking if there were any that focus on volunteer work and community service. So Pillars actually has a Pillars Serves Week. So if you're looking for a mentorship and a leadership opportunity, like, oh my gosh, like, Pillars is the way to go. And it's where I met my best friends. And it's just a really great community. And they do service within the traditional week, which I think now they're calling it Pillars Engage. And then Pillars Serves is the service week. So that's really great. And it's with the Leadership and Service Center, so all those connections. Additionally, like, Spurs Club does volunteer opportunities. Last year, we weren't able to do it because of COVID, but we had arranged for a Camp Abilities, which is basically like a camp for a sports camp for kids with visual impairment. So we were going to do a one-day camp abilities and, help kids with visual impairments learn how to play these games. And unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. I also told you about our trip to Jacksonville, where we were actually able to, drive to Jacksonville and volunteer at a quad rugby tournament, keeping score and helping basically facilitate the tournament and also being able to watch it. And I had the occupational therapist there, Alice, come and talk to us about the program and a little bit about what it does. And we're working on some opportunities to get involved in adaptive yoga. So basically, adaptive yoga, you're going in and you're helping people. So maybe someone has a stroke and they need some assistance on their right side. So, you would support their arm and help them get into the yoga poses and stuff like that, which is really good going into rehabilitation. Okay, what is the best strategy to study when it comes to lab sciences? So I think chemistry and stuff like that, definitely rework practice problems all the time. Rework as many practice problems as you can. I redid all the homework assignments. I did the practice tests that they sent out. If your professor doesn't have practice tests, I'd say go to the SI sessions or talk to a SI leader and see if you can get those. But anatomy is a hard one. I would recommend going on Crash Course and looking at some videos if you need some help conceptualizing things, because they have cute little diagrams and stuff that go all around. So there's that. And then this is my claim to fame, is basically sheet protectors. So you get a sheet protector and then you put your little anatomy things in it. But before you do that, so let me go back here. So you're trying to memorize anatomical structures. That's super difficult. So you get a sheet from your lab book, because I think our lab books were like little binders. So I just took it out and then I took a picture of it and then I whited out all of the labels and then I put it in a sheet protector and then I'd take a little dry erase marker and then I would write it down and see it. And that was honestly the best way to study for that. And honestly, just ask your professors for help, ask people what's helped them in the past. Yeah. And then I would also say, when it comes to studying, especially when you have classes with all of this content, and it's super overwhelming, I know. But when it comes to studying, what I like to think about is to have scheduled review sessions. So this sounds super nerdy and super extra, but I promise it works. And it cuts down time in the long run, instead of cramming and taking 4 days at the end just to cram and not do anything with your life. So basically, you take lost my train of thought. We were talking about studying. Yes, sorry about that. Okay, so you have a lecture, you come home, you review your lecture notes, and then at the end of the week, I had a set day, I think it was Saturday or something, Saturday morning, I'd go to a coffee shop, and I'd sit down and I would review the content for the week. So that time, if you're reviewing every single week and you're looking, you hear the stuff in class, you're reviewing your notes, you're reviewing your notes after class, and then you're reviewing the content of the week at the end of the week, then you're already done a ton of studying. So when it comes to the end, you're oh, I know that, whatever. So yeah. So how difficult is it to manage the course load for exercise science and public health while working, studying for graduate school admission, and still having fun? What are some suggestions on how to manage time specifically for that route? So I applied to graduate school, the Adaptive Physical Education program. I'm also in the midst of applying to an occupational therapy clinical doctorate program. So I know all about the struggle bus there. But it's pretty difficult. But I think whoever asked this question, managing your time, that follow-up question, that's the key. Managing your time. Actually, my peer leader, her name's Grace Kazmierski, and she told me it was one of the best advice I got from anyone throughout college. She's treat the school day like a work day. So if you have classes at 10:05 and then 2:05, or I forget when the classes are even scheduled anymore. But if you have classes throughout the day, use that time in between the classes to do your studying. And then you treat it like a 9 to 5. So it's from 9 to 5, I'm focusing, and then I can do stuff afterwards. I mean, you're always going to have some days where you have to work a little bit extra past that 9 to 5, but that really helps if you can focus. I set a timer on my social media. A lot of times I ignore it, but it helps to have it there. And studying for graduate school admission, you're probably talking about the GREs and the MCATs, and I would schedule literally a certain amount of time every week. So from this time to this time on Friday, I don't know, like Fridays from like 9 to 10:30, I'm going to study for the GRE. And honestly, that's the best thing you can do is I think the best thing you can do is to set yourself a schedule, saying from this time to this time, I'm going to do this, and sticking to it as best you can. And also still having fun. That is so important. One of the regrets I had my freshman year is I was trying to study all the time. And, I missed out on a lot of things. But if you manage your time well and you cut down the procrastinating, you are able to spend time with friends. And that's super important to your college experience because you're going to look back and you're going to love those memories for everything. And yeah, what I do is I literally schedule weekly time to get together with my friends. Now that we're all in grad school and stuff, it's like super busy. So I have some friends, my Pillars friends, who moved away. So on Monday nights, from like Monday nights at 8 every single time, we have a FaceTime and we talk about like everything and catch up and everything like that. I have another friend in town who I meet up with her on Thursday nights. Now, it doesn't have to be as regularly scheduled as that, but I would honestly, plan things in advance and like have certain friends that you make a point to see. Okay, next question. What are some tips on how to set boundaries with your friends? I love them, but sometimes I need space, and they take that as me not liking them. The first thing I'd say is, be upfront with them. I don't know exactly why you're needing boundaries. It may be that they're a little much sometimes. It may be that you have to study. I would be honest with your friends. Maybe not on the they're a little much sometimes. Maybe say, I'm very introverted and I need to recharge. So like I'm not able to do stuff with you all the time, but that doesn't mean I don't like you. Especially if it's you need to study, convey that to them. Like straight up, friends will be respectful of that because they also need to study or maybe should study. And be like, hey, like I really want to go to this and I can't now, but like maybe after I get this done. And maybe set a plan with them in advance so it's not like you're shutting them down every single time they ask you to do something, but maybe it's like you're shutting them down, but then you're offering them another opportunity to hang out or even ask friends to study. And then like if you actually need to concentrate while you're studying, like go to a coffee shop with them and be like, hey, listen, but like I actually need to study. So like please don't talk to me. And I think they'll be respectful of that. So yeah, how to set boundaries for friends. Is there a good public health support system, such as groups, professors, and study buddies? I really think so. I had a friend who was also an exercise science major, and, sometimes it lines up where you literally take every class together. So, she was my roommate and my friend, and she was an exercise science major, so we would, go to different review sessions together, and, I think a lot of times, it's intimidating to make friends in classes and stuff like that. But everyone's kind of low-key looking for someone to study with and low-key looking for people to have friends with, especially in the age of COVID. So I would just kind of reach out to people and be like, hey, like, do you understand this? And then they'd be like, no. And it's like, well, let's try and do this together or something like that. Professors, definitely. But with professors, you really do have to make an effort. They have hundreds of students, so they're not going to come up specifically to you and be like, hey, how are you doing today? In U101, like, Cara will definitely do that 100%. And then you'll know her for the rest of college, and then you'll drop into her office or something if you're like me. But yeah, first of all, you already have a public health support system. It's Cara, and also whoever your peer leader is right now. And, like, if you have any questions, like, go to her. Like, I've kept in touch with her over all the years. I know, like, my students now, I know they reach out to her from time to time and ask questions because, she's really connected and able to help. She's also an advisor. So, like, if you ever have any questions about anything, literally just ask her. Because if she doesn't know the answer, which is highly unlikely because she seems to know everything, she can just refer you to the right person to answer your question. And in terms of, like, other professors for your other classes, go to their office hours or attend them virtually or whatever's happening nowadays. Ask them questions about their research. Ask them questions about how you could better succeed in your class. And, I wouldn't wait until you're struggling in their class to go see them. You build a better rapport if you kind of go see them early on. So, like, don't just see them every single time you take a test. And, well, you can't do that. But if you really want to build a good rapport, see them while you're preparing for your test and not just afterwards. Ask, like, how can I do better in your class? Also ask, like, certain public health concepts, or public health or exercise science, I guess. like what they find interesting, or some things you find interesting and have questions about, want to know more about, because they'd love to talk about their subject. So last question I'm going to answer today are, what are your plans for your career path? Did you have a hard time deciding what job you want to go into? If so, how did you decide? So in terms of plans for my career path, currently it is to become an occupational therapist working within adaptive sports and recreation, because that's kind of my passion. And I actually did have a hard time deciding what job I wanted to go into. Since the summer before my freshman year, I always really, really loved occupational therapy, and I loved adaptive sports so much. And then, I went to find an advisor for Spurs Club, and there was this professor who worked in the physical education department and was coordinating the master's in adaptive physical education. I went up to her and I talked to her about if she'd be the advisor for my club, and then she offered me a free PhD after that meeting in physical education. So I was like, oh no, like my life plan is crumbling before my very eyes. But I had to make a decision. This is potentially another means by which I can get to adaptive sports. Is that something I want to do? Do I want to commit to a whole PhD if I'm not even sure that I know anything about the field, but it's free, and an occupational therapy school is very expensive? And yeah, so I had a hard time deciding what to do. And, I ended up staying 1 year for the master's program, low commitment, and it was paid for. And then telling myself I'd kind of decide after that. I talked to a lot of my friends. I like to talk to my professors, Cara, Dr. Corin, my advisor, Dr. Galloway, my public health professor and thesis director. I talked to, there's someone else I talked to that I was going to say that really helped. Friends, my mentors. So I talked to Alice Krause, who's the occupational therapist at Brooks Adaptive Sports. I was like, hey, I don't know what to do. And that kind of helped me, making a pros and cons list, or just kind of thinking about things. If you're, spiritual, praying about things, that really helps to bring some clarity if that's something that you regularly engage in. So yeah, that was kind of how I decided. I decided that, for me, occupational therapy is something I knew I loved. And so I didn't want to risk spending 3 years and a dissertation doing something I didn't know I loved. So yeah, that was kind of a long video, but those are just my suggestions and answers to your questions. If you need anything and you have any questions about anything specifically about joining Spurs Club, please email me. Cara can give you my email, or text me. She can give you my phone number as well. Or if you just need help, choosing classes or study tips for classes, because if you're an exercise science major, I took most of them. Yeah, and I'm here to help you, and your peer leader is here to help you, and Cara is here to help you. So yeah, just reach out. Thanks.